Hey everyone, we're going to talk about the Pacific theater of World War II today, where the United States will fight the last Axis power, Japan, led by the totalitarian, that dictator with total control, Hideki Tojo. So while this theater is going on, the European theater is also going on. They pretty much are happening simultaneously. But as we remember, FDR's plan is to defeat Germany first, which is going to happen. The European theater will conclude first. But while that is going on, the US has to fight this war on multiple fronts. So they're not just fighting in Europe, they're also fighting here. Now, this is the Pacific Ocean. It's between Asia, and you can imagine right on the other side of where this map is the United States and North America and South America. So the US, as we remember, was first attacked by the Japanese at the naval base of Pearl Harbor, as you see here on the map, in Hawaii, the island of Oahu, which is the reason why the US is going to join the war. While this is happening, Japan has been expanding its influence and controlling a lot of the Pacific, taking over places just like Germany had during World War II. We recall that they invaded Manchuria for their resources in order to industrialize and become a military power. They also will invade Korea. They'll go further into China. They'll go into Thailand, into Vietnam, which at this time was controlled by the French, called French Indochina, into Indonesia, into the Pacific Islands. So they have taken everything in this line that we see right here. So the US, to get to Japan, is going to have to go through a lot of mess to get there and actually fight against them. So let's start right in this area over here. And this is going to be really the US first battle against Japan, which we call the Battle of Midway Island. So this battle is going to happen 6 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Japan so far had, if you remember, they had depleted and destroyed the huge Pacific naval fleet, that Pacific Navy that the US had, and the US has to rebuild and try to defend from the Japanese and push forward at the same time. So things initially aren't going well for the Americans. But I mean, and let's look at let's look at the makeup of their fleets that they had. So this is the U.S. fleet right here. 3 carriers, 50 support ships, a ton of aircraft, because the U.S. is going to control Midway Island and is going to be able to take. They're going to have planes and they're going to take off with these land-based aircrafts to defend the island from the Japanese. They're going to have 8 subs and a ton of aircraft. But we see that Japan has a lot more. They have 1 more carrier, and the carriers are the most important ships. They have a lot of battleships that are primarily like destroyers. The US, as you see, doesn't really even have any. They have 150 support ships, a ton more than the US does compared to 50, and a lot of aircraft that are on their aircraft carriers that you see right here, 248, and pretty much double the amount of submarines that the US has. So the US, for the most part, is outnumbered nearly 2-1 in this battle. But under the leadership of a specific admiral that you need to know the name of, Admiral Chester Nimitz, the US is going to be able to claim victory in this battle and make it a turning point for the Japanese. The turning point, against the Japanese and for the United States, as the US is able to take down most of their fleet and will now be able to attack from a position of strength in the rest of the Pacific. So the U.S. will attack from Hawaii, from Pearl Harbor, and their other naval bases there. Japan will attack here, and the U.S. will claim victory on the Battle of Midway Island, and now has a new strength to fight the Japanese after winning this battle when the odds were against them. So let's talk about Admiral Nimitz for just a second. This is Admiral Nimitz here, and here's a little easy shortcut for you. If something says admiral versus a general, he's generally a commander of the Navy. Another trick to remember, so because he's the commander of the Navy, we need to remember where Admiral Nimitz is important. He is going to be the commander at Pearl Harbor, which was a resounding defeat, as we saw. But another naval battle was the Battle of Midway, which was that turning point that we just talked about. A trick to also remember Nimitz is Nimitz starts with N, Nimitz equals Navy. So Admiral Nimitz, he does all those battles in the Pacific, all those naval battles that are going on. So we'll end right there, and we'll talk about the Bataan Death March next, guys. Thanks.